So in this video, I want to talk about Our Last Crusade, or the Rise of a New World second season. My gosh, has this definitely been a ride. I've talked about a multitude of different things when it comes to this series because of the fact that, yeah, the first season came out. We all know what was in the first season, but with the second season, there was definitely a bit of a drama with it. And the first thing was, of course, the first 3 episodes came out. The anime was then pulled back. It was delayed. It was then reworked on. The first 3 episodes were worked on, along with the other episodes that we had never seen. And then it was re-released. And there was definitely a lot of controversy behind the second season remake. And honestly, I hated the discussion because it became so toxic and so emotionally driven and less logical. Like, I simply presented in one of my videos where I talked about how the animation style that it was before the remake was extremely bad. Like, there are still issues with season 2's animations, but it was far worse with its original version. And a lot of that had to do with, like, Isuke's arm going through her actual body, like her actual boobs. Like, it just went straight through. Like, the physics in it, the proportions were all out of whack. Like, there was so many issues with the first couple of episodes that it just honestly blew my mind. Like, there was just lack of animations, lack of the same feel between season 1 and season 2. Like, season 1, like, for example, the sort of the magical tower for the magical people, as I like to, I know I'm simplifying, like the astral people, like, their tower was really mystical. It felt magical, but then in season 2, it just looked like a really bare bone, boring building. Like, they took all of that astral look out of it that it was going for. And so there were a multitude of different things that were wrong with the first couple of episodes of season 2. So when they did the remake and the author's like, yep, wasn't good, we need to go back to square one and kind of, like, not literally square one, but fix and polish things up, I was, like, really happy with that. I was like, sweet, cool, take your time, cook it, make it good. And as much as season 2 still has its issues, it's substantially better than what we originally started with. But the problem was of course, we have all the political grifters that jump on board and go, this just got censored because her boobs are slightly smaller. No, they weren't smaller. They proportioned them correctly. Like, again, if you've watched the anime, you know, especially if you've watched all of season 2, you would know they haven't shrunk them. They're the same size. But of course, you've got every dumb political grifter out there trying to look for their cheap little moment of attention seeking to try and grab on that and go, censorship, oh, the author's being cucked. He wasn't. And if you believe this, I generally do not respect your opinion at that point, because you've literally thrown all forms of logical thinking out the window to grift on it. Because if you've watched the anime, which, trust me, most of the people that came after me saying, oh, you're defending censorship, didn't watch the anime. They openly admitted that they never watched the anime, they knew nothing about it, they were just looking for something to grift on. And as someone that's read the light novels, a lot of the volumes, now the anime's ahead of me. I used to be ahead of the anime, now I'm behind the anime. But as someone that's watched the anime, read a lot of the light novels, I know what the characters should look like and the proportions to them. And yeah, this wasn't censorship. This was just the first couple episodes were really bad looking. And I found that most genuine actual anime fans and light novel fans were like, yeah, this is pretty bad. They were happy that it got redone, and the author was on the same page. Even he was agreeing. It didn't look good. So it was nice to see that. But I noticed that moment where it first started airing, and then most people just kind of, like, ignore. Like, I just ended up blocking a lot of those people, because I was like, you do not care about the series. You're just grifting. And straight away, all the dissent disappeared because they went on to the next thing they needed to grift about. Again, there is legitimate censorship out there going on, and that's the thing. I've been very vocal against censorship, but this wasn't one of those. And this is the problem. It's either everything is censored or nothing's censored. There's no balance with a lot of these people. So it's why I get irritated, because I'm actually balanced in my opinions and actually look at things logically and reasonably. I then upset both sides. But it needed to be talked about. I don't like politics as a whole, but because of how things have been weaponized, it needed to be noted. No, this has not been censored. So if you're coming into this and you don't know anything about season 2, but you've watched season 1 and you've heard about that, no, this hasn't been censored. It was just the remake had to fix some of the issues with his arm going through her body, it kind of melding in properly, like little cute little scenes, little combat scenes. Though later on in the episodes, way in the final episodes itself, there's a lot of let's just say, combat, a lot of fighting, and you can definitely see some of the choppiness. Like, there's a lot of still shot images being used. Now, I could go into a whole conversation in how using still shot images in a good way and a bad way can be done, because there's another series that I will not name in this, but you probably know what I'm referring to, that uses still shot images in the worst way humanly possible. Now, was there issues with this? Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Like, there's definitely room for improvement. It's worth noting on, but it wasn't the worst thing on the planet. Some of the combat scenes were definitely a little bit choppy, but it wasn't the be all end all. It's palatable. That being said, I would have hated to know what it looked like before the remake was done. So, yeah. So, as time goes on, to me, a lot of the animations look fine. A lot of the scenes look mostly fine. It's when it gets into a lot of combat very quickly, like a lot, like stacked on each other, you start to notice some of the quality drop in it. There was also those moments where I kind of laughed, because when I was listening, like, you're watching the characters talk, and there's like a monologue between two characters. They won't show their mouths. The camera's just above their mouth with the nose, and then sort of almost the tip of their head. And I'm kind of got like my hands so you can't see, but it's like almost the top of their head and just under their nose, above, like, you know, the lip, so you can't see the mouth. And that was like a box, and just the text was just going over it, and that's all you see, and it slightly moves. And I'm like, yeah, that's a still shot image, so they don't have to show the lips moving. Then they'll show a combat scene where the lips are moving, and I'm like, it felt weird, because I was like, okay, you're okay with showing some lip moving here, but you really don't want to show it here. And so it kind of felt like there were corners that they were trying to cut. It's not bad, it's just funny to note on. That's all. No hate, but it was just one of those where I just noticed, I was like, that's how they're going to use still shot images. And that, to me, be honest, that's a better way of doing it than making the whole combat scene like a movement, like, collage where it's like, look, background, thing move, shove particle effects, yay, combat, magic. It's like, that feels janky. While this, as much as it wasn't perfect, it was substantially better. So, worth noting on. Overall, the story itself, I like. I feel like the story did better in the second season than the animations did worse. While in the first season, the story was kind of like, it was still getting warmed up. And that's the thing, the story in the first season feels like it's just getting warmed up. Like a lot of pieces of the puzzle are being set up, and then the second season you see so much more stuff moving into place. And that's why I do feel like if you're an anime only, you really need seasons 1 and 2 to really get invested into the story, because there is so much to unpack. And I feel like season 2 just kind of, the story was more interesting because of one particular part. There are 2 Romeo and Juliet stories in this. Of course, Our Last Crusade, The Rise of the New World is basically a Romeo and Juliet style story with Iska and the Ice Princess. But the Ice Princess's mum and the jail guy, the criminal bad boy, there's a whole Romeo and Juliet story with them. It's like history repeating itself. And so within the first season, you think that he's just an absolute douchebag, power hungry, and then you kind of find out that, oh, actually, he's not as bad as you think he is. And I think there's a bit of like a crush between him and the Queen. Like, he likes the Queen and the Queen kind of likes him, but because of that incident that happened in the past, that's what's rifted them. And I feel like what will happen, and this is just speculation because, as I said, I'm not ahead now of the anime and the light novels, but my speculation is at some point the Queen will find out that he was never behind it, that this was just history repeating itself, and that they were both played to fight each other, sort of like a conflict kind of thing. And they're gonna potentially, I don't know, I could see them kind of like hooking up at the end, because there's no like king anyway, it's just like he's gone out of the picture. So maybe potentially they might end up hooking up. I don't know. It would be nice if they kind of had their own little happy little ending. But then you've also got Iska and the Ice Princess and them and their relationship and everything kind of coming together. And then you've got Sisbel and all that. And then you've got the other sister. I mean, to be honest, that other sister is really hot. But she's also really cray-cray. And what is it with cray-crays and being really hot and seductive? It's like, come on, girl. Come on, sister. Like, you could be so powerful if you just, like, you've got drive. You've got influence. You don't, and that's the thing. I do kind of get why she's so angry with the world, because of how the powers work. everything is sort of based on that. Like, the more stronger you are, the more power you have, the higher your status are. And it's sort of one of those, like, you could be a royal family, but if you just get really unlucky with your astral powers, you could just be basically overthrown. And that's the end of it. It's just like, nah, done. Like, imagine if the queen didn't have the power that she had. She would have been, like, killed ages ago. Because that's the thing. It's that whole power really is. Power brings more power. Like, by them having those strong astral powers, it allows them to have high authority. And so there's a lot of resentment in that. So I do think that's a really cool story hook for one of the sisters to be like, hey, sure, I'm attractive, I'm seductive, I've got this power, I can change, voices and stuff and these little things. And it's like, okay, but at the end of the day, I'm not as strong as my other sisters and they're all gifted and they've all been praised. It's just like, you can see why she's so resentful towards them, because she's been basically sort of outcast and no longer looked as a potential candidate of anything because, well, and I mean, the thing is I think the issue is that she really wanted, I don't think she necessarily wants to be queen, but it's more that she wanted to be seen as an equal in the chance of it, rather than it being like, oh, you're just not deserving, period, and that made her resentful. Because I feel like she's willing to just throw it aside. It's like, I don't really want to be the queen or anything. I just want to burn it all to the ground because they didn't let me have a chance to be one anyway. So she feels inadequate, and because of that, she just kind of wants to rip it all apart. So I kind of get where she's coming from. I don't agree with what she's doing, but I understand her mindset. And that's why I find the story really cool and interesting. Now, as far as the source material goes, because, man, I could ramble about this series for ages. It covers, seems to be 4 volumes each season. I looked it up because, of course, I've read some of it, but not all of it. It's 8 volumes for seasons 1 and 2, and there is a lot more volumes that have not been covered. Right now, I can see, particularly on the fan wiki, and this might be outdated now because the last volume came out October the 19th of 2024 in Japan. That was volume 16. And so that in itself means that there is ample enough material to do another season. But as I am just quickly squizzing through, the last English volume came out the next volume is coming out November the 11th of 2025, and that's volume 15. Volume 16 seems to be the only volume that's come out yet. But here's the thing, if I look back at a couple of the volumes, in 2022 they released 3 volumes, 1 side story, 2 main stories, and then 2015 they released 1 volume, or 2023 they released volume 15, and then last year they released 1 volume. So it does feel like they've slowed down on the volume releases, so you'll probably get another volume like later this year as of recording this, so October of 2025. So it does feel like it's slowing down. But there is also the side story volumes. You never get an adaptation of those unless they slid some of those into OVAs or something. But there is enough material for another season. They could go to volume 12 or something. But I don't think that's probably the objective. I feel like either you're going to wait a long time for a 3rd season as sort of a re-promotion of the light novels, say like if the light novels came to an end. I thought they were going to end at volume 12, but I guess I didn't really look into it too much. But that's the thing. It's like, I feel like if you're going to get a season 3, it would be to re-promote the light novels as the story comes to an end. Because if they do another season now, that's another 4 volumes, and it's just... again, you want to sell the source material. So I do feel like the chances of another season are lower, but it's not impossible. There is enough source material there. But the benefit is that you can go read the source material. The Yen Press have got the legal English translation of the light novels. I would recommend reading from volume 1. If I remember correctly, there was a lot of details missing from the anime, but it wasn't the be-all end-all. Like, you could watch the anime and enjoy the bulk of the story, but there was little details. So if you really want to engross yourself in the story, then definitely go read the light novels from beginning to end, and it's worth it. If you're gonna read the light novels, you might as well start from the beginning. I know there is the manga as well. I wouldn't recommend the manga because the manga stopped at like 2021 with volume 7. So just stick to the light novels. That's why I always say if the main source material is the light novels, stick to the light novels. Generally in that case. There is always exceptions to the rules, but generally speaking, most of the time you just stick to that. I like the series. I think it's really nice. I like the interesting spin on the whole Romeo and Juliet style story. Like I said, I think the chances for season 3 are on the lower end, but it's not impossible. But with how season 2 ended up, I don't know if it would be worth it, because it's like, if season 3 was to happen, are they just going to do a worse job than the last one? Like, is it just going to be a continuous downgrade? I don't know. I definitely would love to read the light novels more, but it is a massive undertaking, and it's one of those where I don't know if there's much of an interest in these types of stories, because it has a very niche audience. The anime itself didn't really draw much of an interest in it. Even season 1, not many people cared about. I love it. I know for a fact, because I looked at other people's, because there was a list going around of what people have watched over the last couple of years, and Our Last Crusade was on a list, and most people that I knew that were content creators hadn't watched it. Like, large content creators, and I'm like, and they brag themselves on watching everything, and they're like, yeah, I haven't watched Our Last Crusade, and I'm like, I'm one of the only ones that does. I really love that Romeo and Juliet style story, so I just don't think it will draw enough interest for a season 3. I think seasons 1 and 2 get you interested enough in the story that if you like this kind of premise, go read the light novels. Plus, yeah, like I said, you could probably imagine the fight scenes a lot better in your own head. So again, love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of seasons 1 and 2 of Our Last Crusade and the Rise of a New World? And again, keep it civil when it comes to the topic of the animations. I don't want this to turn into some political back and forth, because it's just infuriating how everything's been weaponized. Just want to put that out there. So again, keep your thoughts chill and civil. If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.